Oh, let us turn our thoughts today to Martin Luther King and recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth, ties of hope and love, of sister and brotherhood, that we are bound together in our desire to see the world become a place in which our children can grow free and strong. We are bound together by the task that stands before us and the road that lies ahead. We are bound and we are bound. There is a feeling like the clenching of a fist. There is a hunger in the center of the chest. There is a passage through the darkness and the mist. Though the body sleeps, the heart will never rest.
Shed a little light, oh Lord.
Shed a little light, oh Lord,
so that we can see.
oh,
Just a little light, oh Lord.
just a little light, oh my Lord.
Standing on up,
Standing on up,
standing on up,
oh,
stand on up, Lord. Walk it on down, shed a little light, oh Lord. Can't get no light from a dollar bill.
give me no light from a dollar bill.
Don't give me no light from a TV screen.
Oh no, no.
When I open my eyes, I want to take my fill from the well on the
The
hill.
well on the hill, I know you know what I mean.
Shed a little light,
Shed a little light, oh Lord,
so we can see.
oh we can
Just a
see.
little light, oh Lord. Standing on up,
Standing on up,
standing on up, stand on up, Lord. Walking on down,
walking on.
shed a little light, oh Lord. Shed a little light, oh Lord.
Oh, there is a feeling like the clenching of a fist. There is a hunger in the center of the chest. There is a passage through the darkness and the mist. Though the body sleeps, the heart will never rest. Oh, let us turn our thoughts today to Martin Luther King and recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth, ties of hope and love, of sister and brotherhood.
Good morning. My name is Mike Cranmer. I serve on your board of trustees. And before I welcome you all to service this morning, we have a few important announcements. Arnie, are you here? Come on up.
Morning, guys. Just a real quick announcement. On Tuesday, the Middle East Justice Group is going to present a movie, No Other Land. This is kind of another big deal. It's an exclusive showing. This is not something you could get on Netflix or something. We're actually paying quite a bit of money. But Tuesday, 6:30, No Other Land. Please come if you can.
Thanks, Arnie. Lauren, are you here? I think you've got an announcement.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Casebeer, and I'm here as the logistics lead for Quest Camps. Maybe you've heard of it. wanted to take a little bit before the service gets underway and tell you a little bit about it. This summer, it's going to be up in Casper, Wyoming, where it's been for the past couple years, from July 6th to the 12th. And it's the perfect place for youth going into grade 6 through graduating seniors to have a fun and meaningful experience with like-minded youth and UU adults. There's a variety of activities like hiking, field games, friendship bracelet making, and then there's lots of workshops and spiritual practices. It's a perfect mix of outdoor adventures, creativity, connection. Kids stay in cabins with campers and counselors. We have healthy meals every single day, and they can request to bunk with a friend that they want to bring along if they want. We focus on specific UU values every day, but camp is still comfortable for any youth of any spirituality level. So registration is open, financial assistance is available, and I will be by the RE table after the service. If you have any more questions, I can give you the registration link. I've also got a QR code for just a bunch more information for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren. And last but certainly not least, Sheila and Leslie have an announcement for us.
Hello, Leslie. I understand you want to inform everyone about the family potluck and talent show on February 1st.
Yes, the potluck starts at 5:30 and the talent show will follow. It's being sponsored by the RE team, and we encourage everyone to attend this fun event as part of the talent show or simply to watch.
Do you have a talent you plan to present?
Hadn't really thought about it yet.
Well, off the top of your head, what is something you can think of to do that would surprise most of us?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I know how to sing Happy Birthday in Portuguese.
Really? Oh, let's hear it.
You don't want to hear it now, do you? Do you want to hear it now? All right. Parabéns pra você nesta data querida, muitas felicidades, muitos anos de vida.
Wow! That was amazing. If you ever decide to leave your career in education, I bet you could take that on the road.
I don't know about that. Are you going to present a talent?
Well, I can't think of a talent to present.
You don't play an instrument or sing?
Well, when I was young, I took piano and dance lessons, and I played guitar during the folk era, but I haven't continued with any of that in recent years.
I mean, there must be something, maybe juggling or magic tricks.
Well, no, none of that, but the only thing I can think of is songs that I sang to my granddaughters when they were little. For example, camp songs and silly songs like Abba Dabba Honeymoon. That's a real good one. Six Little Ducks and Do Re Mi.
You could sing one of those in the talent show.
Well, perhaps, but I'm not sure anyone would want to listen. Yeah, see? Yeah. See, the audience might throw tomatoes.
Well, any tomatoes will be checked at the door. We want to encourage everyone to participate, and silly is good. Just think about it.
Okay, I will.
Well, that is a tough act to follow. Good morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whether you carry joy or sorrow in your heart, you are welcome here. All people of goodwill are warmly invited to join us on the great journey of the mind, the heart, and the spirit. If this is your first time with us today, please let the offering basket pass you by. Your presence is gift enough. We hope you will join us for coffee and conversation in the community room after the service. And we would love to get to know you and answer any questions you might have. You can also visit the information table next to the exit from the community room. On the first and third Sunday of the month, the offering at First Unitarian is donated to an organization from the Denver community which has been chosen by the Giving in Action team. All cash and checks will be donated in full unless designated otherwise. We will learn about the organization Color, chosen for this Sunday's offering later in the service. If you are looking for ways to engage with our community and support the work of our congregation, please visit the Opportunities table at the back of the community room after the service. There are a variety of activities that would welcome more helping hands. We would love to match you with an opportunity that interests you. Please remember now to silence your cell phone and other electronic devices, and welcome to worship. At this time, please take a moment to greet the people sitting around you.
Good morning, First Unitarian. The proud, the few, the bundled. Today is an announcement magnet kind of day. I'm sorry, I'll be as brief as possible. We have a concert series here. Our next show is this Saturday, Mark Oblinger, the 25th at 7 p.m. This is some of Colorado's finest musicians. It's going to be a great show. We will be selling tickets after the service, or you can go to capitolhillconcerts.com and buy tickets there and get more information. Announcement 2, I am launching a monthly evening contemplative service on the last Wednesday of the month. So it's called Resonance. It will start Wednesday, January 30th at 6 p.m. I hope you will be there. We'll get some information into First Announce this week as well. Finally, I am so pleased to introduce our new interim choir director, Wyatt Smith. And today is his birthday, so we're gonna say happy birthday, Wyatt, on the count of 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Wyatt. Whoever you are, wherever you are joining us from, you are welcome here. Please join us in singing our song of welcome.
We are many, we are one. The light of the world is within you. Sacred and worthy is your soul. A place has been made for you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Daniel Martin. It's a pleasure to see you all on this cold morning. Our call to worship today comes from some wise words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from 1967. One day, one night, a juror came to Jesus, and he wanted to know what he could do to be saved. Jesus didn't get bogged down on the kind of isolated approach of what you shouldn't do. He didn't say, now, Nicodemus, you must stop lying. He didn't say, now, Nicodemus, you must not commit adultery. He didn't say, now, Nicodemus, you must stop cheating if you're doing that. He didn't say, Nicodemus, you must stop drinking liquor if you're doing that excessively. He said something different because Jesus realized something basic, that if a man will lie, he will steal, and if a man is steal, he will kill. So instead of just getting bogged down on one thing, Jesus looked at him and said, Nicodemus, you must be born again. In other words, your whole structure must be changed. A nation that will keep people in slavery for 244 years will thingify them and make them things. And therefore, they will exploit them and poor people generally economically. And a nation that will exploit economically will have to have foreign investments and everything else, and it will have to use its military might to protect them. All of these problems are tied together. What I'm saying today is that we must go from here and say, America, you must be born again. Once again, welcome.
Okay, the young and young at heart, come on down. Where are my favorite people? Here they come. Come on down, friends. All right, so if you'll come on this side, you'll be able to see the book, okay? Hello. Hi, Hazel. I love your outfit today. Hi, Xander. You do? I love it when you already know the book. This is called How Full Is Your Bucket for Kids? And it starts with a problem between a brother and a sister, and they're angry, and Grandpa says, Felix, you just dipped from your sister's bucket. Like everyone else, Anna has an invisible bucket. When it's empty, she feels bad, but when it's full, she feels great. Didn't you ever notice your own bucket? Invisible bucket? Sometimes Felix couldn't quite tell when his grandfather was joking. So he starts to think about this idea of a bucket. And in the morning, everything's going wrong. We're stressed out, the dog is hungry, trying to get his cereal, and everything keeps going wrong. And he realizes drops are coming out of his bucket as he's getting more and more upset. Drip, drip, drip. And then getting out the door, there are problems. On the bus, someone's making fun of him. Then he feels like people are teasing him. And then someone's calling him a name. Drip, drip, drip. He keeps feeling like water is coming out of his bucket. By the time school starts, how does he look? What does his face look like? Angry, maybe sad. He's feeling like his bucket is completely empty. But then guess what? Good things start to happen. People start to say nice things. His teacher compliments him. His friends laugh when he tells his funny story. He gets a love note from his mom and his lunch. The coach picks him to be the captain of the team. Now it's drop, drop, drop. All of a sudden, his bucket is getting filled again. And then he realizes by the afternoon, his bucket is almost full, and he realizes everyone else has a bucket too. So then nice things start to happen. Let me help you. Here's your baseball. Thanks. I'm Felix. Is it your first day? Yes, I'm Amir. And he starts to realize that it's a strange thing. For every drop he has put in someone else's bucket, he also feels a drop in his bucket. So my question for you is, can you think of something you do that might be kind for someone else that might fill someone else's bucket? Can you think of a time you have done something nice for someone? No? Ooh, yes.
When my brother couldn't find his favorite stuffy,
Oh.
I found it in the easiest place.
Oh my goodness. Helping a little brother find his stuffy.
In the middle of his room.
Oh my goodness. It was so obvious, but he needed your help. So you filled his bucket. Did that fill your bucket a little bit to be helpful?
Yeah.
Can anybody else think of an example that you've been kind and filled someone else's bucket? No? We're thoughtful today. That's okay. All right, my friends, you ready to go to class? Vámonos. Don't you have...
Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our first hymn, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Oh, I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving soul my love profess, but not be give by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Urish, and I'm the chair of the Reproductive Justice Committee, and we're wearing a slightly different hat and introducing our Giving in Action partner. Today we're really lucky to have with us Mariah Guerrero, who is the policy manager at Calor, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about the organization.
Good morning, everyone. Happy y'all made it safely on this cold and snowy weekend. Thank you for inviting Calor to be part of your community today. The Colorado Organization for Latina Opportunity and Reproductive Rights, or Calor, is a community-rooted nonprofit organization that works to enable Latina individuals and their families to lead safe, healthy, and self-determined lives. We engage in this work through many different avenues, including civic engagement, organizing, advocacy, and storytelling and policy work. For me, Calor is a place of community, power building, and it's a home for passionate advocates. My path to advocacy is rooted in my family story. I am the daughter of a resilient, strong, single Latina mother. At times, we struggled financially, and at a young age, I saw the overwhelming struggle of being poor. We received government assistance, at times experienced food insecurity, and relied on support from community organizations. At a young age, I learned the challenge of navigating how to access resources and opportunities. Today, my family still relies on Medicaid for healthcare. Without this program, my mom and 12-year-old brother would not have access to the essential healthcare and mental health services that they need. My younger brother has asthma, anxiety, and depression, and my mother is currently in recovery, and it's important that she's able to continue her treatment and counseling. It's experiences like these that inspired me to get into this work, and it's ultimately what led me to Calor, an organization where I can fight for my family, my community, and what matters most to me. I have the privilege of working in policy and advocacy, where I'm able to connect with people from all walks of life and bring them into this work. At Calor, we build power by mobilizing the Latina community, empowering them to embrace and share their stories, and fighting to protect our freedoms over our bodies and our futures. Today, you can support Calor's work by contacting your state lawmakers and urging them to prioritize the well-being of Colorado families. Tell them to protect affordable healthcare programs that families like mine depend on to stay healthy. I'd be happy to share more after service about Calor's resources and help you take action. I also encourage you to follow our policy work this legislative session, because we know that Coloradans deserve care without barriers. And lastly, I invite you to share your story with us in a way that you feel comfortable with. If you don't feel compelled to share, I invite you to reflect. Why does this work matter to you, your family, your faith, your values? What in your story or the stories around you motivates you to join our community and fight? Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. I failed to say, please give generously, and you also will note that there's a QR code, and those who are online will be given instructions on how to give. We hope that this community supports this organization robustly. Thank you.
I grew up with reverence for the red, white, and blue, spoke of God and liberty, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I learned love of country from my own family. Some shivered and prayed, approaching the beaches of Normandy. The flag flies high, and that's how it should be. So many lives given and taken in the name of freedom. But the story's complicated and hard to read. Pages of the book obscured or torn out completely. I am the son of Uncle Sam, and I struggle to understand the good and evil, but I'm doing the best I can in a place built on stolen land with stolen people. Blood in the soil with the cotton and tobacco. Blood in the soil with the cotton and tobacco. Blood in the soil with the cotton and tobacco. A misnamed people and a kidnapped race. Laws may change, but we can't erase the scars of a nation. Of children devalued and disavowed, displaced by greed and the arrogance of manifest destiny. Short-sighted to say it was a long time ago. Not even 2 lifetimes have passed since the days of Lincoln. The sins of Andrew Jackson and the shame of Jim Crow. Time moves slow when the tragedies are beyond description. I am the son of Uncle Sam, and I struggle to understand the good and evil, but I'm doing the best I can in a place built on stolen land with stolen people. We are more than the sum of our parts. All these broken bones and broken hearts. God, will you keep us wherever we go? Will you forgive us for where we've been? We Americans. Blood on the table with the coffee and the sugar. Blood on the table with the coffee and the sugar. Blood on the table with the coffee and the sugar. I've been to every state and seen shore to shore the still open wounds of the Civil War. Watched blinded hatred bounce back and forth. Seen vile prejudice both in the South and the North. And accountability is hard to impose on ghosts of ancestors haunting the halls of our conscience. But the path of grace and goodwill is still here for those of us who may be considered among the living. I am the Son of God and man, and I may never understand the good and evil, but I dearly love this land because of and in spite of we the people. We are more than the sum of our parts. All these broken bones and broken hearts. God, will you keep us wherever we go? Will you forgive us for where we've been? We Americans. We Americans. Love in our hearts with the pain and the memory. Love in our hearts with the pain and the memory. Love in our hearts with the pain and the memory. our hearts with the pain and the memory. Love in our hearts with the pain and the memory. Love in our hearts with the pain and the memory.
Your gifts this morning, freely given, are gratefully received. Thank you for your support of Color. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. I want to take just a moment and hold up our caring team. Are members of the caring team here today? I know there are. Would you stand up briefly so we can recognize you? A couple of joys and concerns of our larger community I want to let you know about. Scott Hebert, longtime partner of Tammy Carpenter, had open heart surgery last Tuesday. The surgery went okay, but then in the evening he had a mild stroke. So he is in rehab right now. As of yesterday, things were looking a little better, and we certainly hope he has a full recovery. I want to remind you that the memorial service for Ed and Jane Wasson is next Saturday, the 25th, right here in this room at 1 o'clock. I want to speak gratitude today for the ceasefire agreement in Israel and Gaza. So very long overdue. I pray that it works. I pray that it holds, and I pray that the people on the ground be assured some peace and dignity, even as they and we mourn all that has been so needlessly lost. I also need to note this morning that tomorrow, while being the annual day in which we celebrate and remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., will also be a day that many of us have feared and dreaded, when a convicted felon and sex offender and serial cheat will be inaugurated as the next president of our complex and beloved country. And I want to note that none of us know exactly what he will do, but we have seen this show before. And we know that it will involve lies and gaslighting and short-sighted score settling and policies that will be disastrous for the global environment on which every living thing depends. I can't stop that or make it go away. But I can warn you and I can encourage you to be ready. To brace yourself. Hold tight to the people that you love. Hold tight to the values of goodness and community and equality that better models have brought to us. By way of a prayer today, in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. and all the other prophets and saints who have stood and preached and worked and endured, that there might be and continue a vision of peace and hope for equality, a recognition that we will all rise together as one human family, or we will perish together as fools. This poem is by some local poets, Masando and Rebecca Hiraoka. Goes like this. So I've got to make a confession. I often find it hard to relate with the religious figures of the past. That monastic flow, so painfully slow, in this world of click this, share that. Holy Spirit, that dove now, that pigeon over there, tweet this, God got a hashtag now. Feels like I've never had time to just sit under a tree like Siddhartha, contemplating the existence of life, suffering, eternity. And when, like the Jews, will I ever roam the desert for 40 years, after Moses parched the Red Sea, made of my people's blood and tears? Or speak to an angel in a cave like Muhammad, peace be upon him. I know nothing of being pursued as an infant like Jesus, whose parents were forced to flee from the Herodian king. When I was born, my family took me home to a cul-de-sac in Aurora, Colorado. Because this Jesus on the cross, bottom and top of the rosary, and Buddha and Hanuman and that one God with the elephant dome piece, sitting now in white folks' bedrooms all around, and Allah, a coded word more than a name on Western tongues, Sister Ruth and the narrative of her story, mostly unsung, the story of these great teachers who breathed prayers alive for many a century, feel too far away to have any relevance to me. All this to say, religion is surely dead. Until I remember my own life's blood, the history of my family, who roamed from Japan at the turn of the last century to the left coast with the most, with dreams of a better life lived, who in Hawaii broke their backs in fields of sugarcane and learned to speak pidgin with the others who had came for that same dream. I remember my legacy as an immigrant, a refugee. I feel now the urgency of Moses coursing through my blood. Political refugee in search of Eden, and on my palms there is a map of how we search for freedom. The Jews turning from the pyramids they built over generations, who left it all in one night, taken in by the desert and the search for a new home. Reminds me of my grandfather, who in one night left life and the grocery store he had built because a president signed an executive order, 9066. All persons of Japanese ancestry must go or be interned in camps. Guns pointed inward, barbed wire fences, the immigrant detention centers of 1942. And feeling this, I breathe into the vows of the Buddhist who takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as my grandfather took refuge in Colorado, the only state that welcomed Japanese Americans during the war. And that is why my family is here. Why I grew up in this landlocked state, far from the large Japanese American communities on our nation's coasts. And this is why I love Colorado. Why I take such pride in where I'm from. It was sanctuary, like the sanctuary that Medina became for Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the first Muslims who were expelled from their home, their holy land of Mecca, because they were considered a threat. The story of God, as seen through these prophets at a glance, far from our modern life, is the story of the refugee, the immigrant, the journey of hope and strife, which is the story of us all. The restoration of dignity, the seeking of safety. We know how to do this togetherness. We've been taking refuge in each other forever. So we continue this legacy and let the ancient ones of the past come back alive in the present through us. The story of peace is encoded in our DNA. Refuge is written in our bones. Amen. So as the choir processes up right now, I want to briefly introduce the song that they're going to do. We Shall Overcome. The origins of this song are lost, really, to history. We know it was a work song that came out of enslaved people in this country. And it was turned into a kind of a formal hymn around 1901. It was published with these words. I think this is kind of cute. The words were in 1901 published, "The world is one great battlefield. with forces all arrayed, if in my heart I do not yield, I will overcome someday. It was first used as a protest song in 1946 by striking workers in South Carolina, and then it was popularized in the 1950s and 60s by white people like Pete Seeger and Joan Baez and Guy Carawan. We offer it this morning in the spirit of civil rights that are still under attack.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
If you'd care to, feel free to stand up and stretch your body for a moment. I have gratitude in my heart for this community and for you this morning. Gratitude to be here. On this eve of Martin Luther King Day, which is tomorrow, I want to begin with a quote. We who must now continue to wrestle with the growing reality of economic injustice in America. We who are challenged to face the fact that this nation has no humane future if it does not deal with the rehumanizing of its cities. We who remember King's unceasing warnings about the triple American evils of racism, militarism, and materialism are engaged and assisted much more fully by the King of the post-1963 years than by an earlier, more convenient hero. My hope is that we might press ourselves beyond amnesia and engage the tougher, more difficult King. As with Malcolm, one of King's most significant characteristics in his last years was a willingness to take great risks on behalf of hope, to shake himself free of the more familiar, triumphant settings and to break loose toward the solitary unchartedness of the wilderness, especially if that exploratory movement might help him respond more faithfully to the cries of the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized women, men, and children of our nation and our world. Perhaps the memory of Martin King needs to be broken free from all official attempts to manage, market, and domesticate him. At the closing of this century, we need a truly free and inconvenient hero, one who may help us to explore new dimensions of our freedom, not simply as a private agenda, but to follow his unmanageable style of seeking and using freedom to serve the needs of the most vulnerable, the most unfree among us. My concern here is that we stop holding King captive to his most pliant history in order that he might help us break free toward our most creative future as persons, as communities, as a nation. How else will we be worthy of such a magnificently inconvenient hero? How else will we discover the hero within us all? That passage came from a remarkable little book by Dr. Vincent Harding. Such enthusiasm. Gotta love it. The central tenet of Harding's book is that the Martin King of popular culture, the one most often quoted, is relatively easy and convenient. But that particular king in 1963 was still a Martin King very much in transition, a man only then beginning to wrestle with issues far beyond racism. My hope this morning is twofold. I hope to explore a little bit of this more difficult Martin Luther King after I Have a Dream, when he began to articulate what we might now call intersectionality, or the interrelatedness of social issues. And secondly, I want to explore the Christian faith of Martin Luther King, and I want to show how it is actually very different from what most of us think of as Christianity. So you might remember, if you lived through that time or read some history, that it was only a few weeks after I Have a Dream that the bomb went off in the 16th Street Baptist Church, killing 4 little girls. And it was only a year and a half after that that the first march in Selma, Alabama was turned back by attack dogs and water hoses. 70 marchers were hospitalized, 2 were killed. It was in this period after I Have a Dream that King began to publicly ask deeper questions, questions that got him into trouble not only with the authorities, but with other black leaders at the time. He began to articulate the connection between poverty and violence, and often equated the two, that poverty was violence. He began to articulate a movement beyond racism and racial equality to include a broader, more inclusive justice. He began to publicly question some of the fundamental assumptions that underlie the whole American society, questions about power and money and justice and opportunity, and how those got lived out in policies both explicit and hidden. He began to speak about foreign policy. He spoke out against the Vietnam War. He called attention to our secret agendas and practices in Central America and to our tacit approval of apartheid in South Africa. He spoke about the economic investment that had long been occurring in parts of Asia, Africa, and South America, investments which inevitably aligned the economic power of the United States with the oppressive, often torturously violent regimes in those areas, those regions. He spoke out against the power of the military-industrial complex and the banking system, swallowing up unbelievably vast amounts of money while millions lived in slums and ghettos. Here's another passage from Martin King, 1967. I want to say to you as I move to my conclusion, as we talk about where do we go from here, that we must honestly face the fact that the movement must address itself to the question of restructuring the whole of American society. There are 40 million poor people here, and one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you're raising a question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. And when you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying more and more we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. We're called upon to help the discouraged beggars in life's marketplace. But one day we must come to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. It means that questions must be raised. And you see, my friends, when you deal with this, you begin to ask the question, who owns the oil? And you begin to ask the question, who owns the iron ore? You begin to ask the question, why do people have to pay water bills in a world that is 2/3 water? These are words that must be said. By this time, just 4 years after I Have a Dream, King was under criticism from just about everywhere. The mainstream media was regularly calling him a communist and a traitor. He made an enemy of Lyndon Johnson for criticizing the Vietnam War. He was accused of harming his own people by speaking outside issues of his concern. He even lost the support of other black civil rights leaders who saw in his attention to these bigger issues a betrayal of the work of racial equality. But he was serious. The 1963 dream of racial equality had been expanded to the broader economic justice and to world peace. And the speaking and organizing he was doing in 67 and 68 was purposefully about uniting people of all races and backgrounds. In 67, he conceived and initiated the Poor People's Campaign, organizing poor people from all walks of life to raise consciousness and affect public policy. I think it needs to be said that if racial equality brought anger from the establishment, the Poor People's Campaign brought rage and fear. Many people in power equated this change in Martin Luther King as going from Martin King as racial reformer to Martin King as genuine revolutionary. The Poor People's Campaign never really got off the ground, because on April 4th, 1968, King was assassinated, Memphis, Tennessee. And there's still some controversy about whether James Earl Ray was the real assassin or whether there was a broader conspiracy. Nobody really knows. One of the reasons I'm talking about this today, not just because tomorrow is Martin Luther King Sunday, Martin Luther King Day, but I think it's important that we remember this Martin Luther King, it's important that we keep the record as clear as we can, because there are efforts right now in multiple states to rewrite and whitewash this history. As if the fight for civil rights in this country was a couple of marches and people singing Kumbaya. That's not how it went down. I remember those days so well. Legend has it that Martin Luther King carried 2 well-worn books with him wherever he went. One of them was Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau, and the other one was Jesus and the Disinherited by Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. And I highly recommend both of those books to you. Reverend Dr. Thurman, though never taking an active role in the civil rights movement, served as spiritual advisor to many of the leaders, including Martin Luther King. The old joke in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which I heard personally from Dr. Vincent Harding when he was still alive, was that Thurman could have been their Messiah if he only hadn't been such a mystic. But I'm going to read to you the opening paragraphs of Thurman's book, Jesus and the Disinherited, because it frames how both Thurman and Martin Luther King approached their Christianity. Many and varied are the interpretations dealing with the teachings and the life of Jesus of Nazareth, but few of those interpretations deal with what the teachings and the life of Jesus have to say to those who stand at a given moment in history with their backs against the wall. To those who need profound succor and strength to enable them to live in the present with dignity and creativity, Christianity has been often sterile and of little avail. Too often, the price extracted by society for security and respectability is that the Christian movement in its formal expression must be on the side of the strong against the weak. So the Jesus of Howard Thurman and the Jesus of Martin Luther King is Jesus as spiritual leader rather than as spiritual entity. And I invite you to ponder that crucial difference, because it's really important. To see Jesus as spiritual leader rather than as a spiritual entity or a spiritual object is to focus on the words and the deeds and the model instead of the theology that has dominated Christianity for so many centuries. And it's to interpret those words and deeds in the context in which Jesus lived and worked. We have spoken of this before. We will speak of it again because it's just that important. So at the risk of digression, 2 little brief things. First one, you can go online this very afternoon and type in the question in your browser, was Martin Luther King a Christian? And you will find dozens of articles and essays from white Christian pastors arguing that he was not a real Christian because he didn't take the Bible literally and he didn't teach dogma. And the second thing I want to digress with just a little is about the book Jesus and the Disinherited. You might think from that title that Thurman's book is a book of Jesus theology, and it is, but it is also, and mostly, it is a beautiful and penetrating insight in how to go about living a faithful life. I highly recommend that book to you. Probably one of the, maybe a handful of books I've actually read more than once. All right, no more, end of digression. To Reverend King, the teachings and the model of Jesus' life in his specific context is actually more important than the dogma. He actually wrote papers about this in graduate school. Following Howard Thurman, King understands that Jesus was first and foremost a poor Jew, almost certainly illiterate, his homeland occupied by a foreign army, his people having few civil rights, almost no protection under the law, and this is what makes Jesus uniquely qualified to be the spiritual leader, not of the already powerful, but of the poor and the oppressed. Thurman wrote, his message focused on the urgency of a radical change in the inner attitude of a people. He recognized that out of the heart are the issues of life, and no external force, however great and overwhelming, can at long last destroy a people if it does not first win the victory of the Spirit against them. Thurman and King understand that everything Jesus said and did is having both spiritual and political implications for the people living under occupation. They understood, and it's really obvious, really, it shouldn't even need to be said, but like when Jesus is speaking, he is not speaking to Europeans, right? Or white people, certainly not capitalists, none of whom were even on his radar screen. He was speaking to his fellow Jews, oppressed by the Romans, heavily taxed, at the whim of any passing soldier. King sees the ministry of Jesus as a direct response to the social and political reality of himself and his people. Another passage from Thurman. Jesus recognized with authentic realism that anyone who permits another to determine the quality of their inner life gives into the hands of the other the keys to their destiny. The Christian faith of Martin Luther King was justification for tearing down the structures of authority. The exact opposite of how Christianity has been used for 1,700 years. And underneath this, the more central teaching of Jesus, which is God's abiding love, not just for a select few, but for all of God's creatures, every last one of them, and the clear responsibility he gives to us for bringing about this transformation, first in our hearts and then in the world. As King often said, in dozens of speeches, in dozens of ways, the goal is brotherhood, and there is no brotherhood without justice. What Martin King came to in the last year of his life is that the single largest injustice in our world is represented by the huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. And all the other injustices essentially flow from that one. He recognized that it is this very system which creates and perpetuates a vast underclass of poverty-stricken people incongruously surrounded by the greatest wealth the world has ever seen. So it's been argued that the main reason the civil rights movement kind of petered out is that when it started, the goal was essentially to split up the American pie more equitably by bringing black people more into the mainstream, removing the status of second-class citizen, the seeking of racial integration. But King had moved beyond that noble cause. And by the end of his life at 39, the dream had become not simply mainstreaming, but forging a whole new river. as many others have observed. If King knew what that new river looked like, from having been to the mountaintop he references in the last speech of his life, he did not share the details of that construction. The shape and quality and texture of that new river remains very unfinished business for all of us. Two brief thoughts as I close here. First, given the inauguration that's going to happen tomorrow, and all the chaos and lies that will be coming thick and fast in the coming weeks and months, I again want to urge you to hold fast to the truth. I want to urge you to hold fast to the people you love. And hold on to your sanity. And remember what Howard Thurman wrote: anyone who permits another to determine the quality of their inner life gives unto the hand of the other the keys to your destiny. Don't let this administration determine the quality of your inner life. Amen? Don't let them. Don't give that to them. Stay grounded, stay connected, stick together. Secondly, despite everything, we just have to remember that the faith of Martin Luther King Jr. was one of great hope. Great hope. He believed in the cause. He believed it was the right and faithful thing to do, even in the face of tremendous odds, even with the very real threat of violence, even with the high possibility of failure. Even failure, King learned from Jesus, does not give us a justification for giving up. In this way, both Jesus and Martin Luther King leave us a very inconvenient legacy, some very unfinished business. And I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes, Don Marquis. What shall have ultimate dominion? Shall it be dream, or shall it be dust? I continue to believe that to be a people of faith means we choose the dream, and then we put our faith to work. Thank you.
Please rise once again. Let's sing together. Guide my feet. Please remain standing, and we'll sing our closing affirmation as well.
Serve diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars, throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars.
Our benediction is from Martin Luther King Jr., 1968. Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness than ever before. Let us stand with a greater determination than ever before. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. Amen.